So, delighted to be here. I've known Mark, or Rhys the writer, as we say in the Welsh circles, for all of 2 hours? But we know each other through friends. A little bird tells me that he's a big Dylan Thomas fan. Yeah. So I'm going to do a Dylan story, right? The only thing you really know about this story is the word charabanc. Does everyone know what charabanc is? Yes. It's a cross between a minibus and a bus, I suppose, a modern bus. And it's about a bunch of men remembered by a young man who are no better than they are on the way out to Port Call. Most people know it as The Outing, but its actual name is A Story. That's all. A story. If you can call it a story. There's no beginning, no end, and there's very little in the middle. It's all about a day's outing by charabanc to Port Call, which of course the charabanc never reached, and it happened when I was so high and much nicer. I was staying at the time with my uncle and his wife. Although she was my aunt, I never thought of her as anything but the wife of my uncle. Partly because he was so big and trumpeting and red-hairy. He used to fill every inch of the hot little house like an old buffalo, squeezed into an airing cupboard. And partly because she was so small and silk and quick, and made no noise at all as she whisked about on padded paws, dusting the china dogs, feeding the buffalo, setting the mousetraps that never caught her. And once she sneaked out of the room to squeak in a nook or nibble in the hayloft, you forgot that she'd ever been there. But there he was, always a steaming hulk of an uncle, his braces straining like hawsers, crammed behind the counter of the tiny shop at the front of the house, and breathing like a brass band, or guzzling and blustering in the kitchen over his gutsy supper. Too big for everything but the great black boats in his boots. Ah! As he ate, the house grew smaller. He billowed out of the furniture, the loud check meadow of his waistcoat, littered as though after a picnic with cigarette ends, peelings, cabbage stalks, bird bones, gravy, and the forest fire of his hair crackled among the hooked hands from the ceiling. She was so small. She could hit him only if she stood on a chair, and every Saturday night at 10:30 he would lift her up under his arm onto a chair in the kitchen so that she could hit him with whatever was handy, which was always a china dog. On Sundays, when pickled, he sang high tenor and won many cups. Now, the first I heard of the annual outing was when I was sitting one evening on a bag of rice behind the counter under one of my uncle's stomachs reading an advertisement for sheep dip, which was all there was to read. The shop was full of my uncle, and when Mr. Benjamin Franklin, Mr. Weasley, and Noah Bowen and Will Sentry came in, I thought it would burst. It was like all being together in a drawer that smelled of cheese and turps and twist tobacco and sweet biscuits and snuff and waistcoat. Mr. Benjamin Franklin said that he had collected enough money for the charabanc and 20 cases of pale ale, and £1 apiece over that he would distribute among the members when they first stopped for refreshments. And he was about sick and tired, he said, of being followed by Will Sentry. All day long, wherever I go, he said, he's after me, like a collie with one eye. I got a shadow of my own, and a dog. I don't need no Tom, Dick, no Harry pursuing me with his dirty muffler on. Will Sentry blushed. It's only oily. Got a bicycle. A man has no privacy at all. Mr. Franklin went on. I tell you, he sits so close, I'm afraid to go out the back in case I sit in his lap. Wife won't let, Will Sentry said, and that started Mr. Franklin off again. And they tried to soothe him down by saying, don't you mind Will Sentry, no harm in old Will. He's only keeping him high on the money, Benji. And they honest? Asked Mr. Franklin in surprise. There was no answer for some time. Then Noah Bowen said, well, you know what the committee is. Ever since Bob the Fiddler don't feel safe for the new treasurer. Do you think I'm going to drink the outing funds like Mr. Franklin? Bob the Fiddler did, said Mr. Franklin. Well, you might, said my uncle slowly. I resign, said Mr. Franklin. Not with our money you won't, Will Sentry said. Oh, put the dynamite in a salmon keep, said Mr. Weasley. But nobody took any notice of him, and after a time they all began to play drafts in the thickening dusk of the hot, cheesy shop, and my uncle blew and bugled whenever he won, and Mr. Weasley grumbled like a Christian community. We chucked that Bob the Fiddle in the sea. We can do that in Porthcawl, said Mr. Franklin. And soon after that he left, Will Sentry no more than an inch behind him, their boots squeaking on the kitchen cobbles. And then, suddenly, there was my uncle's wife, standing in front of the dresser with a china dog in one hand. By gee, I said to myself, well, of course, you've been to Paris. But he suffers so much in the char-a-banc. Stopped us 9 times last year between the beehive and the red dragon. No bowing. Very peaceable. Got a tongue like a turtle dove. Never an argument with Noah Bowen. Jenkins Lucher. Keep him off economics. Cost us a plate glass window and 10 pints for the sergeant. Mr. Jarvis, very tidy. He tried to put a pig in the Shara. Will Sentry said. Live and let live, said my uncle. Will Sentry blushed. Sinbad sailors aren't really got to keep in with him. Old Jones. Why old Jones, Will Sentry said. Old Jones always goes, said my uncle. I looked down at the kitchen table. The tin of sardines was gone. By gee, I said to myself, Uncle's wife is quick as a flash. Cuthbert Johnny Forthright. Now there's a card. He whistles at the women, Will Sentry said. So do you, said Mr. Franklin, in your mind. My uncle at last approved the whole list, pausing only to say when he came across one name. If we weren't a Christian community, we chucked that Bob the Fiddle in the sea. We can do that in Porthcawl, said Mr. Franklin. And soon after that he left, Will Sentry no more than an inch behind him, their boots squeaking on the kitchen cobbles. And then, suddenly, there was my uncle's wife, standing in front of the dresser with a china dog in one hand. By gee, I said to myself, again, did you ever see such a woman, if that is what she is? The lamps were not yet lit in the kitchen, and she stood in a wood of shadows with the plates and the dresser behind her shining like pink and white eyes. If you go on that outing on Saturday, Mr. Thomas, she said to my uncle in a small silk voice, I'm going home to my mother's. Holy Mo, I thought she got a mother. Now there is one old bore mouse of 105 I won't want to be meeting in a dark lane. It's me or the outing, Mr. Thomas. Well, I would have made my choice at once, but it was almost half a minute before my uncle said, well then, Sarah, my love, oh, it's the outing. He lifted her up under his arm onto a chair in the kitchen, and she hit him on the head with a china dog. Then he lifted her down again, and then I said good night. Now for the rest of the week, my uncle's wife was quiet and quick round the house with her darting dust, and my uncle blew and bugled and swole, and I kept myself busy all the time, being up to no good. Then at breakfast on Saturday morning, the morning of the outing, found a note on the kitchen table. It said, there's some eggs in the pantry, take your boots off before you go to bed. My uncle's wife had gone, quick as a flash. Now when my uncle saw the note, he tugged out the flag of his handkerchief and blew such a hubbub of trumpets that the plates on the dresser shook. It's the same every year, he said. Then he looked at me. But this year is different. Who will have to come on the outing too? What the members will say, I dare not think. Well, a charavan pulled up outside, and when the members saw my uncle and me squeeze out of the shop together, both of us cat-licked and brushed in our Sunday best, they snarled like a zoo. Ah! Are you bringing a boy? Asked Mr. Franklin as we climbed into the charabanc. He looked at me with horror. Boys is nasty, said Mr. Weasley. He hasn't paid his contributions, Will Sentry said. No room for boys. Boys get sick in charabancs. So do you, Enoch Dennis, said my uncle. Might as well bring women. The way they said it, women were worse than boys. Better bringing grandfathers. Grandfathers is nasty too, said Mr. Weasley. What can we do with him? What we stop for? Refreshments. I'm a grandfather, said Mr. Weasley. 26 minutes to go, shouted an old man in a Panama hat while looking at the watch. They forgot me at once. Good on, Mr. Cadwallader, they cried, and the charabanc started off down the village street. A few cold women stood at their doors, grimly watching us go. A very small boy waved goodbye, and his mother boxed his ears. It was a beautiful August morning. We were out of the village and over the bridge and up the hill towards Steeple Hat Wood, when Mr. Franklin, with his list of names in his hand, called out loud, Where's old O Jones? Where's old O? We left old O behind. Can't go without Old O! And though Mr. Weasley hissed all the way, we turned and drove back to the village, where outside the Prince of Wales, Old O Jones was waiting patiently and alone with a canvas bag. I didn't want to come at all, Old O Jones said as they hoisted him to Carol Sharrowbank, clapped him on the back, pushed him on a seat, stuck a bottle in his hand. But I always go. And over the bridge and up the hill, and under the deep green woods we rode, cows and ducks flying by until... Stop the bus! Mr. Weasley cried. I left my teeth on the mantelpiece. Never you mind, I said. You're not gonna bite nobody. And they gave him a bottle with a straw. I might put you smile, he said. Not you, they said. What's the time, Mr. Cadwallader? 12 minutes to go, shouted an old man in a Panama hat. And they all began to curse him. The Sharrowbank pulled up outside the Mountain Sheep, a small, unhappy public house with a thatched roof like a wig with ringworm. From a flagpole by the gents fluttered the flag of Siam. I knew it was the flag of Siam because of cigarette cards. The landlord stood at the door to welcome us, simpering like a wolf. He was a long, lean, black-fanged man with a greased love curl and pouncing eyes. What a beautiful August day, he said. He touched his love curl with a claw. That was the way he must have greeted the Mountain Sheep before he ate it. I said to myself. The members rushed out, bleating, and into the bar. You keep an eye on a Shara, said my uncle. See nobody steals it now. There's nobody to steal it, I said, except some cows. But my uncle was already gustily blowing his bugle in the bar. I looked at the cows opposite. They looked at me. There was nothing else for us to do. 45 minutes passed like a very slow cloud. The sun shone down on the lonely road, the lost, unwanted boy, and the lake-eyed cows. In the dark bar, they were so happy they were breaking glasses. A Shawnee onion Breton man with a beret and a necklace of onions bicycled down the road and stopped at the door. Quelle grammata, monsieur, I said. There's French boy Bach, he said. I followed him down the passage and peered into the bar. I could hardly recognise the members of the outing. They had all changed colour. Beetroot, rhubarb, puce. They hollered and rollicked in that dark, damp hole like enormous ancient bad boys. And my uncle surged in the middle of them, all red whiskers on bellies. On the floor was broken glass and Mr. Weasley. Drinks all round, cried Bob the Fiddle. A small, absconding man with bright blue eyes and a plump smile. Who's been robbing the orphans? Who sold his little Bobby to the Jippos? Trust old Bob, he'll let you down. You will have your little joke, said Bob the Fiddle, smiling like a razor. But I forgive you, boys. Out to the fug and babel, I heard. Come out and fight. No, not now, later. No, now, when I'm in a temper. Look at Will Sentry, his proper snobbles. Look at his wilful feet. Look at Mr. Weasley lording it on the floor. Mr. Weasley got up hissing like a gander. That boy pushed me down deliberate, he said, pointing to me at the door. And I slunk away down the passage, the mile of good cows. Time clouded over. The cows wondered. I threw a stone at them, and they wandered, wandering away. Then out blew my uncle, and one by one the members lumbered after him in a grizzle. They had drunk the Mountain Sheep dry. Mr. Weasley had won a string of onions that the Shawnee onion man had raffled in the bar. Where's your good onions? If you left your teeth on the mantelpiece, he said. And when I looked back through the thundering window of the Sharrowbank, I saw the pub grow smaller in the distance. The flag of Siam, from the flagpole by the gents, fluttered now at half-mast. The blue bull, the dragon, the starway as a tush in the wall, sour grapes, the shepherd's arms, the bells of Abu Dhabi. I had nothing to do in the whole wild August world but remember the names where the outing stopped and keep an eye on the Sharrowbank. And whenever it passed a public house, Mr. Weasley would cough like a billy goat and cry, "Stop the bus! I'm dying of breath!" Closing time meant nothing to the members of that outing. Behind locked doors they hymned and rumpused all the beautiful afternoon. And when a policeman entered the Druid's tap by the back door and found them all choral with beer, shh. No bowing said. The pub is shut. Where do you boys come from? He said in his black and blue voice. They told him. I got an aunt there, the policeman said, and very soon he was singing Asleep in the Deep. Off we drove again at last, the Shirebank bouncing with tenors and flagons, and came to a river that rushed along among willows. Water, they shouted. Port call, sang my uncle. Where's a donkey, said Mr. Weasley, and out they lurched to paddle and whoop in the cool, white, winding water. Mr. Franklin, trying to polka on the slippery stones, fell in twice. Nothing is simple, he said, with dignity, as he oozed up the bank. It's cold, I cried. It's lovely. It's smooth as a moth's nose. It's better than portcall. And dusk came down, warm and gentle, on 30 wild, wet, pickled, splashing men, without a care in the world, at the end of the world, in the west of Wales. And who goes there? Called out Will Sentry to a wild, flying duck. They stopped at the hermit's nest for a run to keep out the cold. I played for Aberavon in 1898, said a stranger to Enoch Davis. Liar, said Enoch Davis. I can show you the photos, said the stranger. Forged, said Enoch Davis, and I'll show you my cap at home. Stolen? I got friends to prove it, the stranger said in a fury. Bribed, said Enoch Davis. On the way home, to the simmering moon-splashed dark, old O. Jones began to cook his supper on a prime stove in the middle of the Shirebank. Mr. Weasley coughed himself blue in the smoke. Stop the burst, he cried, and die of breath. We all climbed down into the moonlight. There was not a public house in sight. So they carried out the remaining cases and the primer stove, and old O. Jones himself carried them into a field, sat down in a circle in the field, and drank and sang. But old O. Jones cooked sausage and mash, and the moon flew above us. There I drifted to sleep in Uncle's mountainous waistcoat, and as I slept, who goes there? Called Will Sentry to the flying moon. Thank you.